Right. Oh,
Yes.
1
We
second.
are good.
Okay, perfect. Everyone see it? We're good?
Mm-hmm.
All right, perfect. What's going on, everyone? It's your host, Ethan Borgia, and welcome to the Gridiron Post, and where we have the playoff special because the playoffs just got released. The regular season is over. Me and the gang are all going to do our playoff predictions. But before we get into it, I would like to introduce my co-hosters here. We got Steven Gray and Stone Mueller in the house. How are we feeling, guys? Playoffs are coming up. What are we thinking?
This is the moment we've all been waiting for, the best time of the year.
Feeling excited, ready to go. Let's get these postseason underway.
Love it. Love to hear. I mean, we had a crazy regular season. Coaches are getting fired all over the place, but this episode, we're strictly going to be focused on the playoffs. And then next week, we will talk about more how the playoffs are going and coach firings and whatever the gang wants to talk about. But for tonight only, the stage is set, guys. I mean, this is like Steven said it perfectly before we got on the camera here. This is the road to New Orleans, Steven. This is it.
It starts this weekend.
It starts this weekend. 18 weeks in the making. I mean, a couple teams got booted out. We saw the Bengals, Dolphins lose their chances last week. Falcons got booted out because they didn't win. I mean, a lot of close calls to the end, but these are the best teams in the National Football League trying to make their stride into the Super Bowl. But without further ado, we're not going to go in chronological order. We're going to start in the NFC, go all the way down, then go to the AFC, go all the way down. How did that sound, guys? Good?
That sounds great.
Sounds good. So first off, we will be starting with the NFC wildcard game. And wait, and before we get into any predictions or anything, like Stone Mueller says before every pick'ems, we will be unbiased. We will be logically thinking of who we think is actually going to win the game. This is going to be no favoritism, no hate to the other franchise at all. This is going to be strictly who we think is going to win the game. Is that fair?
Yep, you're absolutely right. We're going to be unbiased and we're going to be completely fair. No favorism, no none of that, because we got to be logical. We're football experts.
Yeah, it's worked all season.
Hey, and then I mean, in the pick'ems when we have been biased, it doesn't always work out for us. So
yeah, I don't think I've had a single pick'em win when I've been completely biased. So exactly. I think that strategy has to go out the door at this point.
Exactly, I agree. But we're gonna start out here. We're gonna go. Honestly, I think I will go in chronological order since that makes more sense. But we're gonna start out with the AFC game right here on the top right. We have the 5 seed Los Angeles Chargers facing off against the Houston Texans at the number 4 seed, kicking off the playoffs of the 2025 season. It'll be in Houston. I'm going to start off with Stone Mueller. Who do you have winning this first matchup between the Houston Texans and Los Angeles Chargers?
All right, so as always, the Texans must get the postseason started for us because that's the best tradition for the NFL playoffs whenever the Texans are in. But I know, jokes aside. But either way, I just feel like the Texans have a lot of injury issues on their offense. They don't have Stephon Diggs. They don't have Tank Dell for the postseason. They only have CJ Stroud. They have Joe Mixon. They have a couple other solid playmakers, but they're lacking some offensive talent that could really make the difference, in the postseason. On the other hand, their offensive line is just not really been that good. They have not protected CJ Stroud that well, and because of that, I just have to question if their offense is going to be good enough to not only win the AFC, but to even win a postseason game at this point. The offense has just been not good. You've taken a look at their past few matchups, they've struggled to put up points. Then on the other hand, you have the Chargers. They have a really good quarterback who will get his first taste in the postseason in Justin Herbert. I'm sure he'll want to go out and he'll want to make a statement. And then they have some very good like playmakers on the offensive side who will also be eager. So in my opinion, I just think, and then another thing to consider is I think the Chargers have an advantage coaching wise. Like I think once you get to the postseason, like this is where coaching really matters. Like how you manage the situation, do you put the players in the right situation? And I just think that Jim Harbaugh is built to like do that. He did it at Michigan. He did it with San Francisco like a decade and so ago. I just feel like the Chargers have the advantage, and I'm just going to have to pick the Chargers to win this game.
Perfect. So we got one vote for the Los Angeles Chargers to beat the Houston Texans, kicking it off. I guess I can go next. I'm also going to piggyback on that and pick the Los Angeles Chargers as well. I mean, a lot of the reasons I agree with what you were saying, but on top of that, I'm just going to go based on the divisions they played in. I mean, the Chargers had a way tougher road to the playoffs playing in the AFC West this year with both the Chiefs and the Broncos. I mean, those are not tough teams to go off against during the regular season, but the fact that they were able to squeeze the playoff spot out and get into the playoffs it was great. I think Justin Herbert and Harbaugh have been working really good. J.K. Dobbins is back in the running game, so their running game is going really well. Ladd McConkey, the whole defense looks pretty spot on as well with Darwin James. But like the Houston Texans just have not looked good this year. I mean, I know in the group chat we always talk about how the Texans they're not really what their record shows. I mean, their division just really bailed them out this year. CJ Stroud, phenomenal player. I think D'Amico Ryans has that defense pretty locked up. I just think at the end of the day, the Chargers are going to come and win this game. So I'm going to pick the Chargers. So we got 2 votes for the Chargers. Stephen Gray, who are you picking?
Well, I am going to complete the sweep and pick the Los Angeles Chargers.
Okay.
Because I think you both have hit it extremely well. The Chargers all season have had to deal with the fact they're playing a really tough division. I mean, the Chiefs are the Chiefs, and the Broncos have come alive as well, and they made a playoff appearance in themselves. And when you look at the team, like the Chargers have a really well team. They got Justin Herbert at QB, who's always seems to be playing very well. You got Ladd McConkey, who has blossomed into a good receiver for them. And then for the Texans, as of late, I mean, the problem is they're not at full strength. I mean, the teams they beat the bad teams, and they got bailed out by the fact that the division literally sucks. A division that composes of the Colts, who lose to the Giants. Then you got the Titans, who are currently going to have the first overall pick, and then the Jaguars, who are terrible in themselves. So, and CJ Stroud literally has nobody to throw to. Like Tank Dell's hurt, Stephon Diggs is hurt. He's out there by himself. Like him and his running back, I believe Joe Mixon. Like I was telling the guys off camera before we recorded that CJ Stroud is literally Paul Crewe before assembling the Mean Machine team, before you added the Earl Meggett, the Deacon Moss, and the Cheeseburger Eddie. And maybe even like if it's like Stroud and Mixon, like Stroud and Mixon are literally Paul Crewe and Earl Meggett before you added your receiving core. So, and it's like, yeah, Tank Dell being hurt is like Deacon Moss being hurt. So it's just injuries have plagued them. I mean, they've had a rough stretch at the end of the season, and the Chargers have come alive. They've ended the season really strong. I mean, they've lost games that they should have won too. They've had games they should have won. There were both times they played the Chiefs that I think they should have won that game. The second game, even like they lost because of a doink. That field goal nearly missed, but it doinked in. So this is I would be shocked if the Texans pulled something off because I really think when it comes to this matchup, the Chargers totally outmatch them. They just more put together, more healthy. They're gonna do it. They're gonna pull it off.
Gotcha. So we're all in favor of the Chargers winning. So I have them moving on to the divisional round to play the number 1 seed Kansas City Chiefs. So that puts us at the next game going to Baltimore. We got an AFC matchup between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens taking place in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm going to start with you, Stephen Gray, on this one. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers, Mike Tomlin, going away to face off Harbaugh and his Ravens with Lamar Jackson in that high-powered offense. Who are you picking in this type matchup here?
This one's pretty easy, and I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens in this one because Baltimore's been hot. I mean, they have the up and downs all season, but they ended the season hot. And they're at full, and when they're playing at full strength, they are had to beat Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, all the weapons, all the weapons you got in that offense. Their defense is pretty good as well. They've come together well. And then when you look at the Steelers, you're looking at a team who's lost their like last 4 or 5 games and have looked utterly atrocious in all of those games. Like they have not looked good at all, and they look sluggish. I think like people are figuring out Russell Wilson, and we're also seeing Russell Wilson like the Russell Wilson we expected, the one that's past his prime. This isn't Seattle Russell Wilson. He's really fallen down to earth. Let's be honest here too. Like his core around him. I mean, Najee Harris, okay, he's 1,000-yard rusher. Like I'll give him that, but it's like the receiving core, like George Pickens. I honestly don't think he's that good. I think he's overrated, and he talks too much. So. And this, like, I mean, you got T.J. Watt, of course, but like the defense is not going to carry the load for you all season. And I think eventually it, like the Steelers, like I've never been being able to trust all season. Like even when they were pulling out wins, they weren't doing it convincingly. And this is something that we always see with the Steelers. Like they'll win games, but they don't do it in a convincing fashion. And then if they stat strong, they fall to earth and fall towards the middle. And this is the same thing that happened. Like they started like 10-3. People thought like, oh, maybe they'll win the division. Pooped the bed last 4 games, and one of them included against the Ravens, and the Ravens totally demolished them. Like the Ravens are more high flying, the Steelers are flat. So I don't see how this game's gonna be any different. I honestly see it could either be a repeat or worse than a repeat. I think it could be the Ravens could give them a big ol' ass whooping. I just don't see how, like, with Lamar and Derrick Henry playing extremely hot right now, I don't see how they're going to lose against a Steelers team that has literally struggling to figure themselves out and have been flat for the last month. It's going to be an annihilation.
Okay, so just to be clear, you are picking the Baltimore Ravens.
Yes, after all of that rambling, it's definitely going to be the Ravens.
Okay, so Steven has locked in his pick for the Baltimore Ravens if no one has picked up on that yet. But he's selected the Baltimore Ravens to win this matchup.
Yeah, oh yeah, and I'm picking the Ravens just in case you're wondering.
Gotcha. So we got 1 vote for Baltimore. I'm going to make it 2. I'm going to pick Baltimore to win this game as well. I mean, Steven pretty much summed it up perfectly. Pittsburgh has looked awful down the stretch. If you asked me if these teams were matching up where we had that halfway point where we went over the top 5 teams, I think I would pick the Steelers to win that game. If you asked me halfway through the year, the Steelers look good. Russell Wilson, his first couple games, he was clicking on all cylinders. George Pickens, he wasn't fighting people. He was more mature halfway through the season. But now at the end of the year, the Steelers they look like they're falling apart. I mean, Russell Wilson looks lost. He looks like he's way past his prime and not what we saw earlier in the year. The defense is the defense. TJ Watt, Casey Hayward, they're going to be out there doing their thing, but it's just not as explosive as the Ravens. And I think with the Ravens are going to put up points. I just don't think that Pittsburgh can keep up. We sort of saw that with the Bengals game. Bengals went out, scored a lot of points. Even with Joe Burrow having an off night, Pittsburgh just wasn't able to keep up. They just weren't able to match the high flying offense with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. I'm gonna pick Baltimore to win this game. I'm gonna make it 2-0. So I'm picking Baltimore to win this game. Pittsburgh had just looked awful down the stretch. I don't think they're gonna pick up another win. So that's what I got. Stone Mueller, it comes down to you. Who are you
Fate of the
picking?
world is in your hands, Stone.
And the AFC North.
This is
matchup.
an easy choice. I'm completing the sweep. It's going to be Baltimore that's going to win this. I mean,
Okay.
Baltimore has the way better offense. Like, we're talking about a dynamic run game being led by Derrick Henry as well as Lamar Jackson. They're actually looking pretty good also in the passing game as well. They just have too many options. And it's like, the only way I can see Pittsburgh winning this game is that they would have to have they would have to have one of the best defensive showings of the year. And they just have not looked great, like, at all. And I just don't think that they have enough to contain, like, this dominant Ravens offense. I mean, I was looking at the stats, like, they're pretty good, I believe, when it comes to defending. I believe it might have been the pass game or run game. I forgot which one it was. But either way, I just don't think that they have, like, they don't have the pieces there to keep up with the Ravens. And let's not even talk about Pittsburgh's offense. Like, their offense was bad. Their offense was so bad against Cincinnati. They couldn't complete passes. They couldn't catch the ball. It was just real, like, pathetic to watch it. And it just had to be, like, frustrating. If you're a Steelers fan, it had to be incredibly frustrating to watch that Pittsburgh team play against the Cincinnati Bengals, just struggling to get anything, like, going. Like, fans were pissed. And I mean, if I were a Steelers fan, I'd be pissed if I saw that type of, like, showing when you have a chance to possibly, like, avoid playing, like, a team like Baltimore. Like, they have looked bad, like, down the stretch, like, lost 4 games in a row. I just think that next week it's going to be 5 in a row to officially end the season for Pittsburgh.
Okay, so we got the clean sweep for Baltimore. Moving on to the AFC divisional round, we're gonna move to the last game of the AFC wild card, because that is gonna be played on Sunday. We got Broncos at Bills at 1:00. I think this is personally going to be a little bit tighter compared to the 2 games that we talked about earlier for the AFC. I think this is going to be the closest AFC game in order to get into the divisional round between the Buffalo Bills and Denver Broncos. I'll flip it back to you, Stone Mueller. Who are you going to pick between Denver and Buffalo?
Ooh, I mean, okay, on paper, when you look at it from the surface level, this shouldn't even be close. You would think that Bill should be able to just dominate the Broncos and move on to the divisional round. And I mean, the statistics, when I do look at the statistics, I mean, that should be true. Like, Buffalo has, like, the better, like, offense. They do. But actually, when you take a look at the numbers, like, Denver has the better, like, defensive numbers than Buffalo. Like, Buffalo is, like, middle of the pack. Denver is, like, top 10. So it's like, if you can combine the fact that Denver has an outstanding defense, they might maybe be able to keep Josh Allen in check to, like, some degree. And then if the offensive line can continue to do their job and protect Bo Nix in the pocket, he could maybe do a little bit of cooking, in the pocket and find some of his receivers to score, like, to move down the field. So I think this is going to be a closer game. Like, I agree with you, Ethan. This will be a closer game, but I just think that in the end, Buffalo just has too much, like, talent. Like, I mean, Josh Allen is playing out of his mind. Like, he's on a mission to deliver Buffalo, like, a Super Bowl win. Like, it's Super Bowl or bust for Buffalo. Like, they've had so much disappointments over the years that this has just got to be a year that they've got to, like, do something. Like, they've changed up their entire, like, identity, and it's worked so well like during the regular season, and it's time that they've got to deliver in the postseason, and that's why I'm gonna go with Buffalo to win this game. But it will be close. Denver will give them a run for their money, but I just think Denver is going to fall short and end up losing to the Bills.
Gotcha. So we got one build for Buffalo from Stone Mueller. Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, I think it's going to be closer than the other AFC opening matchups. But yeah, looking at it, Buffalo's been dominant all year. They've looked great. They beat, the back-to-back Super Bowl champions, Kansas City Chiefs. I think that was a huge momentum booster for them in their season. But like, I just feel bad for Denver. I mean, this is their first playoff appearance in a while. I know fans have been hoping for that. I just think they got a poor luck at the draw. I think if they were playing in the other two matchups, they could be moving on for sure. If they were replacing Houston or even Baltimore, they could be moving on. But that's not the case. They got the worst luck of the draw, being the 7th seed. Obviously, they got to play Buffalo here. I'm also gonna have to pick Buffalo here. I think Buffalo just had a tremendous season. Josh Allen's having an MVP caliber year. That team just looks really, really put together going down the stretch. But I can't even discredit the Denver Broncos. Had a great year. I mean, this is Bo Nix's rookie year. Bo Nix is a rookie. Him and Sean Payton have been working extremely hard to get that offense clicking on all cylinders. Their defense, like Stone said, had top in the league for defense. But are they going to be able to contain Josh Allen and his veteran experience being in the playoffs over and over again? I don't know. So I'm going to have to pick Buffalo here to make it 2-0. Stephen Gray, what are you thinking? Are you thinking the same thing, different? What are you thinking?
Yeah, well, first off, I think it's a no-brainer for me. I'm going to complete the sweep and pick Buffalo to win this game. I mean, at first I was thinking, I would take Buffalo in a landslide, but when you dig down deep and look at the logistics, then you realize that Denver is not going to be one of those teams that just walks out easily. I mean, they could literally be a dark horse coming into this postseason. I mean, they could put up a fight, and even if they don't win, they could even show something for the future. What we could see from them coming into the future. I mean, especially on the defense. I mean, but with that being said, it's like I really just feel like this is Buffalo's year to lose. Like they are really put together. Like this is the most explosive I've seen Buffalo in all their years of going to the playoffs. Like they've just been so dominant. It's ridiculous. Their offense is playing out of its mind, and Josh Allen in particular is going crazy. He has those games where they put up 40 points, and even when they put up 30 points too, it's really good. I mean, he had the incredible performance against Kansas City to give them their only real loss of the season. So, as I said early in the season, like Buffalo is throbbing at the mouth, and I feel like they're going to come in here and just going to show this week why they are going to be a really dangerous threat. Now, maybe they'll show glimpses, but I think, like you guys pointed out, it's like Denver's not going to walk out easily. I think this could still have the makings of being at least a one-possession game. I think Denver can make some stops on defense, and then but it's just going to be too much because Josh MVP. This is MVP Josh Allen. He's going to be playing out of his mind. It's going to be crazy.
Gotcha. So we got the clean sweep for the Buffalo Denver match, and it looked like we had a clean sweep the entire AFC for the opening matchup. So we had everyone agree that wasn't too hard at all. I mean, everything was sort of just laid out there for us, except the Denver Buffalo game. I guess that one had your gears going a little bit, but at the end of the day, we knew we're going to pick Buffalo to win that game. But can we say the same about the NFC side? Who knows? Ooh. We're gonna get there right now. We got no commercials, so we're going right into the NFC side. So
we're not lying like NFL Red Zone.
Oh, we're not lying.
We're not Red Zone.
Commercial free. We are commercial free here at GP. We'll never ever have ads for you guys unless people want to sponsor us. But For right now, no commercials at all.
No commercials. Let's keep it that way.
Exactly. Following the Broncos and Bills games on Sunday, we have the Packers. It's a rematch from the Brazil opening game. Packers facing off against the Philadelphia Eagles. This is gonna be interesting because we have no idea what the health concerns of Jalen Hurts is right now. We have no idea what that's looking like at all going into this game. No other news has been released about concussion protocol. But without further ado, Stephen Gray, who do you got? Green Bay taking on Philly.
This is a very interesting one because, I mean, it's like I'm gonna have to pick somebody, but I almost want to say like this game is going to depend on. I was gonna say this game is going to depend on if Jalen Hurts is going to be playing, but obviously I'm gonna have to pick somebody. But it's like, I mean, even if he is playing, I mean, there still could be the questions about him not being 100%, being a little shaky, not being right in the head because of the concussion and everything. And then at the same time, it's like Green Bay. It's like, sure, they got Jordan Love, who's been having a great year, but they just lost Christian Watson for the season with the ACL injury. So both these teams are not going to be at full strength. I just think about the fact that Philly, even without Jalen, they're still pretty well put together because, I mean, they dominated the Cowboys. I mean, okay, that final week, they were just resting the status. And everything. This one has really got me scratching my head because
it's an interesting game.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, I think about Green Bay last year with pulling off the upset in Dallas. I just have this gut feeling that they could do it again. And I mean, Green Bay is like, it's like we can't, like, we have to remember how good, like, but then again, they lost to the Bears last week. I know they clinched I mean, although I feel like last week it was like they were either going to be a 6 or 7, so it wasn't like they were fighting for a division spot. I kind of wanted to go for an upset, but like the more I get into it, I think about how Philly's just very well complete, even without the quarterback. And I mean, that's just a compliment to their team because they got Saquon, they got A.J. Brown, they got Devontae Smith on the offense. They have a very well put together defense. I mean, with Green Bay not having a top receiver, like it could give the Eagles defense more opportunity to shut down everybody else on that team. So I was going to go Green Bay, but I think I'm going to shift back and take the safe option and pick Philadelphia to win this game. Okay. I think with even if Jalen isn't playing, they still got Saquon. They still got A.J. Brown. They still got Devontae Smith. They still have a very well put together team, and they can pull it off even if they have to go another week at least without Jalen. I mean, if they can get through this week, then hope, like, for their sake, I'm sure Jalen could come back and maybe, if needed, like lead him to the promised land. And because like when they come back, if they win and they get him back, that we could be potentially be looking out for them in the playoffs. I just think Philly's team all around is more put together, even without Jalen. I think they can make it last for 1 week. And I think Green Bay, the loss of Watson, might get them a little bit too much.
Okay, so we got Steven down for the Eagles winning this first matchup. Yeah, when it comes down to this game, it's so interesting because we don't know what the health status of Jalen Hurts is, if he's playing or not. And then obviously Christian Watson, one of their wide receiver one, clearly out. So Jordan Love's not going to have his go-to option for this upcoming matchup. But I still think it's going to be a tight game. I think Green Bay is fighting for everything. They've been in a tough NFC North all year, so now is their time to really show that we can be the best of the best outside of the NFC North, and then we can hopefully get it together down the line and make a playoff run. I think Green Bay is just looking to get hot at the right moment. It's going to be tough to get hot against this Eagles team, though. Like Steven said, they're freaking complete. Jalen Carter on the defensive line. I mean, that secondary, you got Darius Slay out there. No, they look great. The Eagles look great. I think I'm just banking on the fact that I know Jalen Hurts is the type of competitor and athlete that would want to play in the playoffs. I don't think he's missing it. But even if they don't have him, I'm thinking worst case, if they do have Kenny Pickett, who's the backup? Who's the third string for Eagles? McKee. Even if they have him, I really feel like he could get the job done. I think you just have a really great support staff around you. Your O-line is great with Lane Johnson up there up front. You got Devontae Smith out there, A.J. Brown. I just think you have a lot of pieces. And Saquon behind you. You got Saquon. You got Saquon. That's all you need. So honestly, I'm in that same like perspective that Steven is seeing with I think they can make it one round, but I'm really banking on Jalen Hurts. And I think if Jalen Hurts comes back, that's almost like a pillow of safety that I need. So I'm going to pick the Eagles to win this game. Again, it's going to be interesting, though. I really don't know how it's going to pan out, but I'm going to pick the Eagles. Stone, who are you picking to win this game?
All right. So this is going to definitely be like a good game because, I mean, both teams, have very good offenses and very good defenses. And this game will definitely come down to like the status of like each of like the players because I'm seeing here on like ESPN that of course Hurts of course is like questionable to play, but I'm also seeing that A.J. Brown may also be like questionable to play as well. And then I also see that Jordan Love is also questionable as well. So we have a lot of injuries, and it's just like it almost seems like it's hard to make a prediction without knowing like who's actually going to be taking the field in Philly this coming Sunday. But I guess just going strictly just based off the numbers, there is one particular weakness that I think Green Bay can take advantage of Philly, and that is the fact that Philly's passing game is actually the fourth worst in football. And I mean, the only teams that they are better than the Patriots, the Bears, and the Panthers when it comes to like their passing game. Like they're strictly like so like run heavy, like only up there with Baltimore. So I just feel like if you're Green Bay, if you can like put all of your emphasis on stopping Saquon Barkley, you give yourself an excellent chance to like win this game. And I just feel like if you don't have Jalen Hurts playing in this game, that just really hurts Philly's chances of like moving on because they may just take the same page of what the Commanders did, in which they just made the emphasis of stopping Saquon Barkley. So I just feel like if Jalen Hurts is in, then I think Philly wins. If Jalen Hurts is not in, then I feel like Green Bay will get this win. I just feel like it just comes down to who the QB for Philadelphia is. So it feels very hard to make a prediction, but I know Jalen Hurts is gonna want to get in. So I'm just gonna say by a narrow edge, Philly is gonna probably just barely come out with a win. And I mean, like this could be. I mean, I could potentially see this game being like an upset, but I just think that Philly has enough cushion to overcome, like their injury adversary. Like now, if they did not have like the good like receiving core, then I'd probably be picking Green Bay to win this game. And then plus, if you take a look at Green Bay's like schedule, they didn't beat anybody in their division except for the Bears in that game that happened 2 days ago. So I just feel like Green Bay, they just don't play well against good teams. And I just think that because that they're going to be competitive, it's going to be close. I think it will come down to a field goal. I just think that in the end, the Birds are just going to squeak by to the divisional round.
Gotcha. So we got a clean sweep for the Eagles taking over the Green Bay Packers to move
Oh,
on.
by the way, I think the Packers beat the Bears early in the season. It wasn't this Sunday.
I thought it was this.
Oh no, that was I think it was back in November when Green Bay beat Chicago on the blocked field goal.
Oh yeah, that's what you're actually right. You
Bears,
are actually right.
Bears won on Sunday.
Yep, you're right. But going back to my point, they went 1-5 in their own division, which is never a good marker of indicating like any type of playoff success.
Hey, that's very true. That's very true.
Gotcha. So we got the Eagles moving on to the divisional round. Now that leads us to the last game on Sunday, the night game. We got the Washington Commanders taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is a week one, correct me if I'm wrong, Steven. Week 1 rematch, right?
You got it.
Week one rematch.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers ended up taking that one away. I mean, it was Jaden Daniels' first start, and the Buccaneers were full strength with Chris Godwin in. Different story now. Whole year's wrapped up. Jaden Daniels is now in a rhythm. Buccaneers without Chris Godwin. So now it comes down to who's going to win this game. I'm going to start out. Stone Mueller, it is your turn to pick first.
And remember what we talked about staying unbiased.
Unbiased and a realistic pick projection.
Yeah, when I talk about staying unbiased, this is what I was trying to prepare myself for when it comes to like a matchup that involves my own team. So I'm going to give you my best. I'm going to give you my best pick on who I think will win, even if it goes against what I hope actually happens this Sunday.
Okay, we're ready.
All right. So when I take a look at this game will really be a coin flip, in my opinion, because both teams have their strengths and their weaknesses. Let's start with the Buccaneers. So the Buccaneers have a really good receiving core, obviously led by Mike Evans. They have a good quarterback in Baker Mayfield. They have a pretty, and correct me if I'm wrong, they have a solid offensive line who have done like a pretty fair job at protecting Baker Mayfield and giving him enough time to like pass the football to one of his like receivers. Now looking at the Commanders, if you take a look at their offensive line, it's been all right. It's not the best, but it does get the job done. Jaden Daniels, he's definitely a top 5 QB in the NFC, maybe even top 10 in all of football right now. Like he has played like an elite quarterback as a rookie. Now looking at the defense, I just think that the Commanders, their pass defense is actually really good. It's in the top 5. But where we get exposed is when other teams run the ball on the ground. We have like the 3rd worst run defense in the league, and that is why by a great miracle, I'm glad we don't have to play Philly, because I feel like if the Commanders were playing Philly, we would get killed on the ground and it would not even be close. So, but the Buccaneers are not a team who relies on running the ball on the ground. They rely on their passing game, which means that I think defensively, we have a good chance to match up with the Buccaneers passing game, especially if Marshawn Lattimore is going to be in the game to face his favorite buddy, Mike Evans.
They love each other.
Yep, they definitely love each other. You see them always out there hugging each other, some playful pushing.
A little bit of a hug me, brother, like Drake and Josh.
Yep, Drake and Josh, or Tom and Jerry at this point.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Yep, but that's how it's gone for both of them. And I think if Lattimore is healthy, I think we're going to keep Mike Evans in check. I really do think we will keep Mike Evans, in check. If Lattimore is not in the game, then I feel like Mike Evans is going to just pounce all over us, just like what he did in week 1, where our cornerbacks could not keep up with him for dear life, and we just got blown out. So I just feel, and then there's another thing is that before I get to my obvious, before I make a pick, I just think that when it comes to like quarterbacks, especially rookie quarterbacks, I just feel like I'm not sure how Jaden Daniels will do like in the postseason. Like obviously he lives for these moments, but quarterbacks historically, when they're rookies, don't do well in their first game. But then I heard someone on like TV say that the Commanders may actually be like the most dangerous team in the postseason because they have nothing to lose because we've already accomplished like so we've already accomplished what we wanted to do, which was just being like relevant again. Like we've exceeded expectations. And that's why I just feel like it's going to be close, but I just think I'm going to make a logical pick and say that I think Washington will come out on top. It will be barely close, but I think Washington will come out on top. I think they're looking for that one moment to re-spark this like fan base, give them that 1990s basically like vibe. And I just think that with Lattimore going up against Mike Evans, he's going to be kept in check. And I just think that if they can't get Mike Evans like going, it's going to be hard for the Buccaneers to win this game. And that's why I am going to pick Washington to win this game. Unbiased. Unbiased.
I mean, you laid out all of your points. You went through Tampa, you went through Washington. So I'm gonna take that as unbiased, Steven. You agree? Unbiased?
Yeah, I think he did a great job of staying unbiased.
I think that clears the bias. I mean, you went through the pros of the Bucks, you went through the pros of the Commanders, and then you went through the cons of the Commanders and the cons of the Bucks. So I think that was very well done. It was a great analysis.
Yeah,
but Washington will
had to be honest, and I'll be honest.
Yeah.
If we had to play Philly,
exactly.
and I'll be honest, if the Commies had to play Philly, I would be picking Philly to move on.
Okay.
I would be picking Philly, even though in my heart I would want the Commies to win.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Well, we got one vote for the Commanders, beating the Buccaneers for this matchup. I guess I mean, I've been thinking about I think this is the game that's highlighted in my mind. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone has posted it on their story. People, I think, are going to the game. I mean, being local here in Tampa, everyone's going to this freaking game on Sunday night. So this is all I'm hearing about. But then just really taking a deep dive in it, I'm like, well, thinking back to week 1, Buccaneers cleared them. But it's a whole different ballgame now. Jaden Daniels is a whole season under his belt. Chris Godwin is out. Washington made a couple moves at the deadline, getting Marshawn Lattimore. And whenever Mike Evans goes up against Marshawn Lattimore, he gets shut down. And he gets really rarely any receptions. So if you take Mike Evans out of the game, like you said, you're going to have to rely on Bucky Irving in the running game. Bucky Irving is hit or miss. I mean, he's rookie running back out of Oregon. He's either going to make you miss. He's a power back. I don't know how that's going to work out with the Washington defense. But it just, I'm looking at last week and the last couple of weeks that the Buccaneers have played. I mean, they barely beat the Saints. I mean, they barely made it out of that one. They were going up against Spencer Rattler, also a rookie quarterback. And he seemed like he was giving Baker a run for his money. So I'm not quite concerned about Jaden Daniels being a rookie quarterback in this situation. Like you said, they've got nothing to lose. And Jaden Daniels is, this might be a hot take, years better than Spencer Rattler right now. I think I would rather have Jaden Daniels playing on my team rather than Spencer Rattler. I just think the Buccaneers are the most average team, though. Like, Baker Mayfield will only make the plays when it matters. They have Mike Evans, but then no one else. And then on defense, they have Winfield and they have Vita Vea and then Devin White. There's not too much happening with the Buccaneers that makes me confident in them to win. long story short, yeah, I'm going to have to pick the Commanders to win this game. It's going to be close. Like Stone said, I think Baker's going to make some insane plays when it's going to matter in the fourth, third quarter when he needs it and throw it to Jalen McMillan for a toe tapping Santonio Holmes sort of catch. But I'm going to pick the Commanders to win. I think they're going to get it done. I think it'll be a great win for them. So, Steven, who are you picking to win this matchup?
All right. I am going to complete the sweep and
Okay.
pick the Commanders
All
to win
right.
this game. Break it down to you, I just feel like Washington is the more complete team and is a lot more stacked and built for this. Like they got their QB of the future who has shined all year. And he has been waiting for this moment to show what he can do. And he's got a very well put team around him. You got Terry McLaurin, De'Ami Brown, Zacchaeus, the well-rounded offense. And then if Marshawn Lattimore ends up being healthy for this game, you got a boost to the defense. A defense who has greatly improved. I mean, this team has come together. And this game could be a big opportunity to say to the league, Washington's fucking back. And then when we go, looking at Tampa side, it's just like the same thing for the last 3 years now. Like Tampa barely squeaks by with a division win, and like they're like an average team that makes the postseason, and then they just get knocked out in the playoffs. I mean, that's just typical Tampa at this point. And they were in a weak division, a division that of teams that does not do very well. And then they really benefited from the fact that they had 2 teams that are bad and then 1 team that was plagued by a poor slump. And it's I think it's just one of those things where Tampa does well enough to get to the playoffs, and then when they get there, it's just too much to overcome because the talent is obnoxiously good. And in this case, I think this is spite. The fact that Washington's last playoff win was in Tampa 19 years ago. Washington came into Tampa and they beat the Bucks. I think it's spite. I think we're going to see a repeat in history, and Washington's just going to come in and look insanely good and pull off a win. I mean, this is going to be Washington's moment to say to the league, we're back and we're here to stay. And this is going to solidify that Jaden Daniels is going to be a superstar in this league. This is Washington's to take. This doesn't even feel like an upset pick. This does not feel like an upset pick. This feels like an easy choice.
Okay, so we got 3 votes for the Commanders to move on to the divisional round. So that's good. No argument there. Moving on to the last NFC game to punch their ticket. I don't know why that showed up. To move on to the NFC divisional game to face on the number 1 seed Detroit Lions. We had the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Los Angeles Rams. Again, another really interesting matchup. 2 teams. Steven, have these 2 teams faced each other this year?
Yes, actually. Okay. This was one of Minnesota's 3 losses. They lost 2 to Detroit, and then this was the only other game that they lost.
Gotcha. So this is one of Minnesota's 3 losses coming up against the Rams. They have played this year, but again, a really interesting matchup. 2 teams that rarely really see each other during the year. Rams being a really streaky team. Minnesota also being a really streaky team. At moments, we think they can compete with the Lions. At other points, we don't. So we're going to see how this matchup goes on. In picking first, we're going to go with Stephen Gray. We got winning this game, Stephen.
I thought this is going to be one of those where I'm going back and forth and it's going to be like a really tight game. I mean, it probably will be a tight game. The last game was close, and I still see this being a close game, but I think I'm going to pick the Vikings to win this one because even though they got totally demolished by Detroit last week, I mean, that's Detroit. They are insanely good. We can't really give them too much crap for the fact that they got dominated by a team that has had the best season ever in their franchise's history. And this will be a week where Minnesota is going to get together, come back, and get rejuvenated and get things fixed. I mean, and even in the Detroit game, they got dominated, but they had opportunities to keep that game closer than it actually was. They had I think they had 3 red zone opportunities where they probably should have scored touchdowns, and they didn't. They have the team. I mean, my point is they still have that team that can still compete and still play well. I mean, Donald's had his best year. You still got Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison on the receiving end. This team didn't all of a sudden they had again, they had their dud last week, but again, it was against the super team in Detroit. This could be a great opportunity for them to remake their statement and put themselves back on their platform and put themselves in a position to compete. I think and now the Rams are it's definitely gonna be a close game because we gotta look at the Rams too. It's they started slow, but again, they had one of their rejuvenations in the second half of the year. They came together and started playing well. They had the big win against Buffalo. For God's sake, they competed with them all the way to the end, beat with the 44-42 shootout. I mean, they got, not saying they're gonna be able, it's I just feel in this instance, it's LA's a little bit more streaky than Minnesota because Minnesota has the 14 wins to prove that maybe at least this year they're not as streaky as they have been in the past. So I think for this week it's got to go to Minnesota. They're going to come in and they'll handle their business against the Rams and they'll move on to the divisional round.
Okay, so we got one vote. Stephen Gray taking the Minnesota Vikings at the 5 seed for the upset against the Los Angeles Rams. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to do the same, Steven. I think I'm also gonna have to pick. There's just some sort of energy that makes the Vikings feel different this year. I mean, 14 wins, like you said, really impressive season for the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, I thought they could beat the Lions in Week 18. I mean, like we said on the show, even though we picked the Lions to win, we thought it was going to be closer than what was expected. I mean, that's just the energy that Minnesota has this year. Justin Jefferson looks insane. Aaron Jones looks great. TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison. I mean, Sam Darnold's having a breakout season for the Vikings. So, yeah, I'm going to pick the Vikings to win, but I'm scared, dude. I'm scared for my own sake for picking the Vikings because I don't know what kind of team we're going to get out of Los Angeles. We're either going to see them, absolutely throw up a dud, like Steven says, or they're going to hang. They're going to hang with the Vikings and show out like they did against Buffalo and find a way to compete with them this game. But based on consistency, I think I am going to have to pick Minnesota to win this game. I mean, Kevin O'Connell, this is your year, man. You got to get at least one playoff win. So I'm picking the Vikings to win this game. Stone Mueller, do you agree?
Ooh, I'm not really sure because when I look at the Rams offense, they have Cooper Kupp, they have Puka, who also is a very dominant wide receiver. They also have Matthew Stafford. I mean, he's very experienced in the playoffs. I mean, he was there when he led the Rams to a Super Bowl win against the Bengals. And then when I look at Minnesota, they have Justin Jefferson. They do have Cam Akers. They do have Sam Darnold. But the thing is, Sam Darnold kind of struggled in the game versus Detroit. He didn't look like the Sam Darnold for the first 16 games. Whether if it's because Detroit's defense is just that good, or if it's maybe Sam Darnold just I don't know, maybe had his regress moment. I don't really know why that's the case, but I just feel this is going to be a closer game than I think people are thinking. Yeah, I get that the Vikings are 14-3, but it just seems the Vikings they couldn't beat like the really like good teams. Like they couldn't beat Detroit. They just couldn't beat Detroit. They lost to, I believe they also lost to the Rams as well. So I just feel like I just think that I may have to go over our first like difference pick and say that I think the Rams could like edge out the Rams edge out the Vikings and they move on to face the Eagles.
Ooh, okay.
Okay. Wait, would the Minnesota Vikings play the Eagles or the Lions?
Oh,
The
so if the
Commanders would play
whoever wins the Vikings Rams game would face the Eagles, because the Lions would play the lowest seed.
Gotcha. Okay. So Stone has the Rams winning. So now we're gonna have to agree. Now we're gonna have to agree here with who we think. And Stone, your primary reason for picking the Rams is just trust in the playoffs, or Sam Darnold regressing? What's sort of the primary reason here?
I just feel like I just don't know what type of Sam Darnold we're gonna get. Like this is like he's gonna be making his postseason debut. I mean, the spotlight is gonna be there. I mean, when the spotlight was high in Detroit, he just fumbled the bag. I just don't know if what type of Sam Darnold we're gonna get. Like if we get the Sam Darnold that we got in that Week 18 matchup, then I just think that Minnesota may not have like enough. And then you have like the Rams, like they have probably the best 1-2 receiver duel like in the league with Matthew Stafford, who knows how to move the chains and knows how to manage in-game situations. Like he knows how to get a job done. Like the Rams were so competitive against the Bills. Like they could have won that game if maybe like a few things had gone right for them. And
They
plus,
did beat the Bills.
oh, they did.
They did.
Oh, I thought they hadn't. For some reason, I thought they had lost that game.
Nope, they pulled off the big win against the Bills.
Well, that proves my point that they know how to get the job done against these great teams. And Sean McVay he's just a magnificent coach who has won a Super Bowl. He's also led the Rams to like a Super Bowl. I just think that they have the better coach. They have, I think, more on their offense. That's just why I just think that the Rams, like they're built for this like moment. I think the Vikings, they had their moment in the regular season, but I just don't think they have enough in the postseason to get the job done because the Rams they're going to double coverage Justin Jefferson, meaning that they're going to have to rely on like Cam Akers or like their other like playmakers to get the job done because the Rams are going to make it an emphasis to not let Justin Jefferson beat them.
Okay. And that's fair. Dang. That's a good point. I mean, McVay is experienced, Stafford is experienced, he's been in the league for a while. They have won a Super Bowl together. They have done this. Sam Darnold had not quite done this before as a starter. I mean, he was San Francisco last year as the backup, but obviously he wasn't playing. I guess I'm just leaning on that Minnesota defense. I mean, yeah, obviously last week they were going up against the high-flying Lions who, Ben Johnson absolutely throwing up a game plan for him and being aggressive under Dan Campbell. But I think Brian Flores has done a tremendous job with that Minnesota defense, which I'm really leaning on here. And even if it takes a quarter or two for Sam Darnold to get clicking, I'm still leaning on the Vikings to just hold up on that defensive front and their amazing touchdown celebrations, which I love to see. But yeah, I mean, they gotta find other options rather than Justin Jefferson. They gotta find TJ. They gotta find Aaron Jones in the run game. They gotta find Jordan Addison. I think Naylor's a really good receiver too. I don't know. Steven, are you budging? What are you thinking?
I'm still rocking with Minnesota here because I just think about again, 14 wins. They won 14 games this season, and again, yes, they did get their asses whooped on Sunday. But again, that's the Detroit Lions who literally just had the best season in their franchise's history. And it's like, even if they do like end up double covering Jefferson, like they still have other reliable playmakers they get the ball to. They have Hawkinson. They got Jordan Addison. They can go to the run game. I mean, and Minnesota's defense has really stepped up this year, as you said, Ethan. I mean, I just think, like, again, the Vikings are just so flashy. It's like the games are close, but they're flashy. They can make the plays. They do what it takes to win. And again, that's a big reason why they got the 14 wins to begin with. And it's like, I just think the Rams, again, are just like, you don't know what kind of Rams you're going to get. Are you going to get the one that beat the Bills and put up 44 points? Or are you going to get the Rams that just absolutely, like, maybe is like pooping the bed and just doesn't show up one time? It's like, I just like, yeah, the Rams have experience. They have the playoff experience on the team. I just think that it's like, I just think, like, I just don't know if I trust the Rams when it comes to at least when it comes to the postseason this year. I really am leaning toward Minnesota and their flashiness. And again, I highly emphasize the 14 wins. And the fact, again, like, yes, the Rams were one of the games that they lost to, but other than that, the two other games they lost to were to Detroit. And they nearly beat Detroit too in that first game. Let's not forget, they nearly beat Detroit in that first game at the beginning of the season. It wasn't like they totally got obliterated in both of those games. So it's like, I just have this feeling like it's still like Minnesota has this opportunity to come out there and make a statement. It's like Minnesota has the opportunity to make a statement, and then like LA, it's like, yeah, it's gonna be close. Don't get me wrong. LA's not gonna get cake walked on, but I really just don't trust them. It's like, because you never know what Rams you're gonna get.
Okay, Stone, have you come to the consensus?
I mean, I'm gonna entertain you all with this one specific stat that I'm seeing. So, since you all are mentioning about the Vikings defense, the Vikings actually have the fifth worst pass defense in the NFL. They've given up the most amount of passing, the fifth most passing yards, and I just feel like LA is just, they're gonna run with their two like dominant receiver core. But I do agree that yes, their run, like the Vikings like run defense is like so dominant that I think they'll stop the Rams like run game. Like the only way I can be convinced that the Vikings win is if they can find a way to have their pass defense just be like a lot better. Like just find a way to shut down both like Puka and Cooper Kupp. Like that's the one thing that's really like keeping me from like picking like Minnesota from like winning, because I think Minnesota has a good offense, but I just don't know how their pass defense is going to be against, the Rams like pass offense. So feel free to entertain me on some maybe ways that the Vikings could stop, the Rams pass offense.
You got anything, Steven?
Let me see.
Yeah, I'm like, I know this is a pretty like tough one. Like this could honestly just be like a coin flip, like at this point.
Let me see.
I mean, it's just like, has Cooper Kupp has he had an amazing year though? Is he still in his like prime Cooper Kupp that we all know? Because I'm just trying to look at the stats here. It's just so hit or miss. He only has 3 100+ yard games this year.
Which I mean, he definitely has had like a down year, like only 710 yards. So
right.
I guess like all the emphasis is gonna be put on like Puka. So I guess like, can Cooper Kupp step up? If he doesn't step up, then I feel like the Rams may potentially like not have like just barely like lose to the Vikings. So I'm gonna say this: if the Vikings can find a way to keep Puka in check, then I think the Vikings could win. But it's gonna be like close. Like it will be like maybe like field goal wins the game. So I think the fact that Cooper Cup has had like a down year, I may end up just saying that the Vikings probably will just barely win, but it's not. It's gonna be very very close, like within three.
Okay. Okay. And
Yeah.
if Los Angeles wins this game, Stone called it. That's just what we're gonna
I
have to.
just, yeah, it's like, I mean, I just think like if you shut down Puka, like you don't know for sure if you're gonna get the great Koopa Cup that we've seen in the past because yeah, like Ethan was mentioning, like the fact that he's only had those 300-yard games all season, it's like you don't know if you're going to get a good version of him. That's kind of again the whole point with the Rams. I've been trying to make with the Rams. You don't know what version you're going to get. It's like
So hard to trust them. I just don't know.
I really, yeah, it's like Minnesota has, it's like at least for the regular season they have like proven to at least in the regular season proven to be trusted because they won the 14 games. The Rams are just still in their
That's
shaking stage.
true.
Fair.
That
Okay.
is very true.
So we got all the opening rounds set. I guess that just leads to follow-up question of
Oh yeah, Ethan. I think the Washington would then play Detroit, and then Minnesota would play Philadelphia.
gotcha. And then the AFC side, what would that be?
Oh, you're good on the AFC side.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So that's all set. But I guess that remains the following question is what opening matchup are you guys most looking forward to? I'll start with Stone. Give us the
Well,
obvious answer.
obviously, I'm looking forward to the Washington versus Tampa Bay game because I feel like that's a 50-50 game. It's one of those classic kind of like playoff type games where like the vibes are going to be like high. Both teams want to try and get like the win. Both teams are going to fight until until the last second of the game. I just think that that's the game that I'm really like looking forward to because of the fact that both teams have like an excellent chance to move on to the divisional round.
Okay, so we got Washington, Tampa for Stone. Steven, who was your favorite washout match here?
I would say Green Bay versus Philadelphia.
Okay.
Because it's like the uncertainty with with Jalen Hurts and everything. Is he gonna play? Is he not gonna play? And then just the matchup in itself. Like you got a Green Bay team who's been really good all year. They just had they just had the unfortunate scenario, the fact that they had two teams of at least 14 wins in their division, two teams that are really hot, having career years. And then you got Philadelphia, who has just a very well-rounded team altogether, and the best running back in the league, who could have very well broken the rushing record if he had played that final game. That's just going to be a matchup of a team that wants to prove that they're great. You got a team that wants to prove how great they are, despite having two big brothers who are superior than them, at least in the record table. And then you have another team who on paper are very well rounded and can, if they look poised to make a big splash.
Gotcha. Okay, so Steven's watch out game is coming from the NFC as well. Green Bay and Philly. I guess my watch out game would be the Denver Buffalo game. We all picked Buffalo to win. I think I'm still sold on Buffalo winning. I'm just really interested to see how physical and how good Bo Nix can be in his playoff debut. I think Sean Payton just leading him and leading that team. I think they're in the same situation as Washington, a team who has been dying to make the freaking playoffs, and a team who they got the poor end of the draw here. I mean, they got to play number 2 Buffalo in the opening round. I mean, that sucks. You got to play Josh Allen in Buffalo. That sucks. But
Mhm.
I really am excited to see how Bo Nix handles, playoff pressure and how Sean Payton does with a real legit team. So I'm really looking forward to the Denver game to see what happens there. But we are now going to move on to the second round, the divisional round of the playoffs, to keep going and find our Super Bowl winner tonight. So without further ado, let's start back in the top right section of the AFC. We got the Los Angeles Chargers, our number 5, who we had making it out, going off against the back-to-back Super Bowl champions, Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to have, who did I start with? Stone. We're going to have Stone lead off with this one. Chargers taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. Who are you picking?
Ooh, this one. I feel like this game has got to be like close. Like I'm taking a look at like the numbers, and both teams are looking very like evenly like matched. Like the Chargers do have a couple of like advantages in terms of like their run game is slightly a bit better than Kansas City. Their passing game is just a few teams below Kansas City. So I feel like it's a little bit of a give or take in terms of like offense. And then looking on like the defense here, the Chargers have a pretty solid defense, but the Chiefs also have a very solid like defense here. But I think where the Chargers have an advantage is the fact that the Chargers have a top 10 passing defense where the Chiefs are kind of like middle of the pack. And then when looking at like the run defense, the Chiefs actually have the better defense when it comes to like stopping the run game versus the Chargers. So it's a little bit of a give or take. So I feel like this game is definitely got to be close. So, like, I just think that offense and defense are both evenly matched. I think coaching wise, I think obviously this advantage will go to Andy Reid because, I mean, what has he done? He's won like 2 Super Bowls, been to another Super Bowl. It just feels like, like it's basically Kansas City versus like the world at this point. Like who can knock down Kansas City? And our first opponent will be the Chargers. I just think that when I've looked at previous teams that have gone up against the Chiefs in the divisional round, like the Browns, the Texans, like they're teams who the Colts, they are teams that have put up a fight, but then they kind of just fall short because the Chiefs like find a way to like get the job done. And I feel like that's how this game is gonna go. Like the Chargers are gonna give like a solid fight, but then I just feel like the Chiefs are just gonna get the job done because the Chiefs are simply like the Chiefs, and because of that, I just feel like it would be completely wrong if I didn't pick the Chiefs. So I'm going to go with Kansas City to yet again appear in the AFC Championship game again.
Gotcha. So Stone is going with the Kansas City Chiefs. Moving on to the AFC Championship game. Yeah, I mean, this is again an AFC West matchup. These teams have seen each other twice this year. Kansas City went 2-0 against the Chargers, winning both games. Again, they were close. They were close for a majority of the game until the very end, where Kansas City always walks away. I see the same thing happening here. I really do. I think Kansas City, especially in the playoffs, they are deadly. They are deadly. They always have a plan. They always just work up something. They work up something in the playoffs to win these games. And like Stone said, Andy Reid has a ton of experience winning back-to-back Super Bowls. I mean, Harbaugh went on that Super Bowl run with the 49ers when he had Colin Kaepernick and whatnot, but you're I mean, you're hopping right back into it. This is your rookie year again coaching, so you're right back into it. This is your first year with the Chargers with that team. I just don't think it's the Chargers year yet to go on a run. So I'm gonna pick the Kansas City Chiefs as well. So I'm gonna go 2 votes for Kansas City here. Stephen Gray, who are you picking? Agree or disagree with us?
Well, I think considering if this is the case, this happens, this would be the third match of the season. I think the Chargers would be really throttling at the mouth for the opportunity to have a third crack at Kansas City, given the fact that they could have beaten them the two other times and probably should have beaten them the second time because of the stupid doink. But it's like you got to look at the details. Like, sure, Kansas City's not doing well offensively, but their defense is just so good. It's like Kansas City's not scoring a lot of points, but the reason why they're winning all those games is because the defense has been playing superb. Like, they've held their opponents to a low amount of points, keeping the points off the board. Even if they're not scoring the points, they're keeping the points off the board. And that's what's been key to the victory, to their victories. It's like I think the Chargers would have a great opportunity learning from the two losses. I think they'll be really energized by the fact that they would have an opportunity to pull off a big win and make a statement. I just don't think this is the year it's going to happen. I really do think it's going to be Kansas City pulling this off. I'll complete the sweep on this one and pick Kansas City. And again, we have talked about being unbiased, so I'm going to keep that going here. It is important to realize that the Chiefs are a really good team. They have a really good defense this year, and just when they get to the playoffs, they have always stepped up and always will make a statement. So we cannot use any bias here to pick. Otherwise, we got to be true and know that the Chiefs are the better team in this instance, and they will more than likely be in the AFC Championship game.
Gotcha. So we got 3 votes for Kansas City, clean sweep, like Steven said. I mean, we're doing a great job with unbiased here. It's tough. It's tough, admitting the truth, but we are picking Kansas City here to win this game against the Chargers. But moving on to the other AFC divisional game with the Baltimore Ravens, another rematch from earlier in the year. And correct me if I'm wrong, Steven, Baltimore decimated Buffalo.
35-10, not even close.
Yep, not even close. But they get a rematch in Buffalo this time. So they're going to go to Buffalo. It'll probably be snowing and icy, and Bills Mafia will probably have to get there early to shovel. But I don't know. So we'll see. But we got Baltimore taking on the number 2 seed in Buffalo. Who picked first? Stone picked first. So we got Steven. Steven, who are you picking? Ravens Flock or Bills Mafia?
I think obviously the difference between this matchup and the one from early in the season, the Bills were finding their rhythm. They're trying to find their identity and find their way. So they weren't at full strength when it came to that game. This is a whole new Bills team. And I think they're just going to play to the advantage of the fact that they're at home and that they have this really big team put all together. I think Josh Allen, again, this week would come out and pull out his true MVP form, go out there, unleash himself. This would definitely be a close game. And I think this game would have potential to be a shootout because Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry will run up the scoreboard themselves. I think this has potential for both teams to be in the 30s, at least, with their points.
30 plus.
Mm-hmm. I just think, with the Bills being at home and the Bills' determination to win in the postseason, I know this is a battle of two teams who typically aren't very trusted when it comes to the postseason. But as I said before, I feel like it's just a different year for Buffalo. The fact that they beat Kansas City this season, they're the only team to pull off a real win against Kansas City this year. And I think that's the big thing that carries them over and gives them a huge advantage. Obviously, they're not playing Kansas City; they're playing Baltimore. But I think this has the potential to be like a 38-35 type of game, something like that. So I think the Bills, again, they're going to learn from their game where they lost them and got decimated. But they're a whole different team now. So I think I got to go Buffalo. I'm sticking with Buffalo. They're just so hot, and it's like I feel like I could trust Josh Allen more than Lamar Jackson.
Okay. So Steven is voting for the Buffalo Bills to win this matchup. Yeah, I mean, dude, that game was so rough for Buffalo when they got decimated 35-10. Like they just looked horrible. Buffalo just looked horrible. But like Steven said, they're in their rhythm now. They're going all out right now. Defense looked great. Offense looked great. Josh Allen playing at MVP level. But I mean, I'm looking at the other side. Derrick Henry's having a great year with the Ravens. Lamar Jackson is playing insane with Zay Flowers, and then the defense looks great. That defense, though, is a little banged up. Like Kyle Hamilton is dealing with a lot of injuries, and I think that's the best defensive player that the Ravens got right now. And if he's not 100%, Josh Allen's gonna be running all over that Ravens defense. He's gonna be right up the gut, right up the gut. 4th and 1, you got to go for it. Josh Allen right up the gut. Whatever it is, I think. And James Cook, I can't even forget about James Cook. I think James Cook can have a really good running game as well, especially if that Ravens defense, if that defense is banged up. And it's at home. I think, like you said, the Bills have been dying for a Super Bowl, and they definitely want a rematch against Kansas City. They know Kansas City's waiting at the end of that thing to punch your ticket to the Super Bowl. They beat them once this year. I know they want the other opportunity to do it again. I'm going to pick Buffalo to win this game. Like Steven said, it's going to be a shootout. Both defenses are a little bit banged up, but I think Josh Allen's going to go absolutely crazy. So I'm picking the Bills. Stone Mueller, do you agree?
I'm completing the sweep, and Buffalo is going to be moving on because here's the thing. I actually trust that Josh Allen will get the job done more than Lamar Jackson can because in the past, Lamar Jackson has never really played well in the postseason. Like when you think about it, 2019, he choked the Titans. 2020, the Ravens lost to the same team, the Buffalo Bills, especially on that huge like pick six return. And then the following years they've either like missed the postseason or they have just lost, actually last year they lost to the Chiefs in the championship game. They couldn't get the job done. Then that following year they missed the postseason. They just can't get the job done. And they played terrible in the championship game last season. This is not a team that is usually built for the postseason because John Harbaugh never gets his team ready for the postseason in the first place. He doesn't have somebody like Joe Flacco to go out and motivate his entire team to go out there and actually like play hard like the season's on the line. Like Lamar doesn't have that type of leadership style as Joe Flacco did. He has the intangibles, he has the skill, but I just don't think that Lamar can get the job done like how Joe Flacco did like a decade ago. And then just looking at the numbers, like the numbers, they're very like even. Like some teams, like there's some stats where like the Bills are better than the Ravens in some aspects. Some stats where the Ravens are better than the Bills. But I just think that Josh Allen, he's at least shown that he can get the job done. It's just that in the past, the Bills have lost to better teams, such as Kansas City or Cincinnati. Like they've lost to like incredibly good teams. And I just think that this is just their time to just go on a run. And unfortunately for the Ravens, their flying time will come to an end in Buffalo because, as they say, they usually can't fly in snow.
There we go. So we got a clean sweep for Buffalo to move on to the AFC Championship to face off against the Kansas City Chiefs. We will get to that in a minute. Moving on to the NFC divisional game, we got the Commanders taking on the Detroit Lions at Ford Field. Stone Mueller is going to kick back to you for the Commanders and Lions game. Who are you picking to win this game?
Well, I'm gonna be honest. This is where I'm gonna be honest. This is where the magical season for the Commanders is unfortunately going to come to an end. And while like inside of my heart, I do hope that the Commanders can obviously make it to the NFC Championship game and obviously the Super Bowl and possibly win it all. I just think that there's no way in hell we can compete with Detroit because Detroit they're just on a mission like right now. Like they're just on a mission like right now to win like the Super Bowl to bring glory back to Detroit. Now I will say in Washington they will compete against Detroit because Washington has shown that they can compete against anybody, but for my reasoning, they just don't have the talent to keep up with Detroit. Like Detroit just has better receivers. They have a good run game. They play hook and ladders. They do so much stuff that the Commanders like defense has so many holes that I don't even know if the Commanders can even be able to like defend like all of this. Like you literally need to have like a lot of speed, and I just think that with guys like BSJ who just can't make a tackle to save their own life, and some players that still have shades of Ron Rivera. They're just good. We just don't have that roster there, and I just think that this is where it's gonna end. Like I mean, I'm looking at like the statistics, like defensive wise, like our pass defense very good. That might be our only way we can compete against Detroit, but on the ground, we're gonna get killed on the ground because our run defense is like the worst. And then when we talk about offense, like Detroit, second best passing offense in the league, rushing Detroit like top 10. I think they're like top 6. Their offense is just there's just too much going on that our defense I don't think can handle that. So Detroit's going to win. Magical season for Washington will probably end in Detroit.
Okay, so Stone Mueller is going with the Detroit Lions to win this matchup. I mean, guys, like Detroit was our number one power ranking team halfway through the year. Has anything changed?
Yeah.
Not really.
Not really.
Not
Not
really, no,
really.
because ever since then, they've only lost one other game. They've only lost 2 games this year. So I'm going to pick Detroit to win this game. I mean, like, for Stone's sake, I'm really sad I'm saying that. I'm always rooting for the underdogs in the playoffs. But, I mean, Detroit's got a lot going on. Like you said, I mean, they six in rushing this year, Stone.
I mean, they just got so much on like their offense. Like they've got receivers who can make plays. They got good running backs. Their O line is so dominant. They're playing hook and ladder. They're so innovative with their offense. They go for it on fourth down to the point that it can wear down like an entire defense because when you go for it on fourth down like so many times, it literally forces the defense players to play an extra down. And I don't know if our defense is just really like that, like conditioned to handle maybe an extra like 10-ish like high pressure plays like that, to like be honest with you. I would love to be proven wrong. Like prove me wrong, but I just don't think we have the talent to keep up with Detroit.
Gotcha. I mean, yeah, Detroit's looked great all year. Jared Goff had a phenomenal season. Jameer Gibbs being the lead running back with David Montgomery out now. I think Jameer Gibbs has done a phenomenal job taking over as well. I mean, their wide receivers, Jamison Williams is electric. Amon-Ra St. Brown can do a hook and ladder. He can catch slants. He can run. It's great to see him doing well in that defense. Even with Aiden Hutchinson down, that defense is still stepping up and being a force to be reckoned with Dan Campbell at the helm. So I'm going to pick Detroit to win this game. Steven, are you in the same boat?
I think there's no doubt the sweep is going to be completed because, as we have said all season, like Detroit, like since midseason, you've said it. Detroit has been our number one. We have stuck with that all year, and there's no way we can go back now. I'm just hoping for Stone's sake that it's a competitive game, and who knows, they probably may even compete with them. I don't think they're going to go down without a fight, but Detroit's just going to be too much. They're just too flashy. They're too creative. They have the crazy plays that nobody has ever seen before. You have a coach who is not afraid of anything. He literally doesn't even get asked if he wants to go for on fourth down. If you go to fourth down, it's like, okay, what play are we running? It's not a question of are we going for it? It's what play are we running? You just got a team that's just ballsy and unafraid, and it's literally as I said before early in the episode, it's a team that has had the best season in their franchise's history, 15-2, and this playoff game is going to be a big opening statement of what we could potentially be seeing.
Yeah. All right, so we got the clean sweep for Detroit, moving on to the NFC Championship round. Now we got the last team to make the Final Four, which is the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia. So we're going to start with Stephen Gray on this one. Who are you picking for the Minnesota Vikings and Philadelphia Eagles for this game?
I think this is the game where Minnesota's flashiness comes to an end. I think Philadelphia takes this one. They're going to be at home, and by then, Jalen Hurts, if he doesn't play the next week, he'll definitely be back for this game. And if he is back for the game next week, he for sure is going to be a lot more healthier in this game. And the Phillies team is just way more complete. They're going to take care of business. And honestly, like we've had the history of Minnesota coming into Philadelphia and getting absolutely obliterated. It happened in the 2017 NFC Championship. We wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens again, where Minnesota just falls flat and puts up a dud. And I just feel like Philadelphia is just way too complete to lose this game. So I definitely would take Philadelphia over Minnesota.
Okay, so we've got one for Eagles, one for Philly. I'm also going to go with Philadelphia as well. I think, yeah. I mean, I'm planning on Jalen Hurts being back this Sunday, but if he's not, he's definitely going to be back for this game if they continue going on. I mean, it was just we weren't even sure if Minnesota is going to get out of the first round with Los Angeles. I mean, like we were going back and forth with Stone. I mean, ultimately we came up to the result that the Minnesota Vikings would be moving on, but they're barely moving out of the first round. I just think the Eagles are, like Steven said, more complete. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be back ready to frickin' go. It's in Philadelphia. That is one of the hardest places you can play in the world. The fans are ruthless, especially in the playoffs. So I'm going to pick Philly to win this game. I just think there's, similar to the Lions, you got a lot happening on that offense to take care of. So I'm going to go with the Eagles here. Stone Mueller.
I'm going to go with the Eagles to also win this game. This is going to be a sweep. And yeah, when we talk about being unbiased, I was preparing for this exact moment where I was going to have to pick, a division rival to move on to the next round, and picking, my favorite team to not move on to the next round. But Philly is just a better team. Their defense is just dominant. Their pass defense is the best in the league. Their run defense is top 10. I think. And then taking a look at the offense, their run game is just spectacular with Saquon Barkley. Their passing game, again, is not really that great. So one particular area you can exploit, but I just think even if you exploit that, that's still not enough to get the job done against Philadelphia. And plus Minnesota, I just think that, again, I have question marks about where if the Vikings can even win a playoff game at all, where of it, because again, I still personally, if I was doing my own bracket, I would personally think that the Rams would be the better team, but for our bracket that we're doing together, I just think that for the Vikings, I just think they have some holes that can be exploited. Once again, if you double cover Justin Jefferson, then you have to rely on Jordan Anderson or Cam Akers to get the job done. And then Sam Darnold. I mean, we don't know which Sam Darnold we're going to like get. And to play against a really like good defense in their home environment in front of a hostile crowd, I just think that's going to be too much for the Vikings. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this is even like a blowout, in like my opinion. I just don't think Minnesota is ready for like the postseason, in my opinion. Like, I just think this game won't even be close at all. It might be over by the time the fourth quarter starts. So I'm going with Philly as well.
So we got the clean sweep for the NFC East Philadelphia Eagles moving on to the NFC Championship round and face off against the Lions. Now it's coming down to who we think is going to the Super Bowl from our respective divisions here, NFC, AFC. We're going to start in the AFC with the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Buffalo Bills. We have seen this many times before. Kansas City and Buffalo. At Kansas City, because they are the 1 seed. Stephen Gray, or no, it's going to start with Stone. It flips back to Stone. You're right. It's going to split back to Stone. We'll hear from Stephen Gray a little bit later. Stone Mueller, you get the first crack at it, though. Kansas City and Buffalo, a rematch. Who's taking this one?
Well, Buffalo has the better offense than Kansas City, to be honest with you. But I think Kansas City knows how to manage like in-game situations. But I just feel like Buffalo, they beat Kansas City. So obviously they know what it takes to beat Kansas City, but this time it'd be in Kansas City. So a little bit of a disadvantage for Buffalo, in like my opinion. It would come down to whose defense can really get like the job done. Like when it comes to like, the pass defense, like I mean the Chiefs defense, it's kind of middle of the pack. And then when it comes to like Buffalo, it's kind of like almost at the bottom of the league. And then for like the run D, like Buffalo has a good run defense, while Kansas City is also like in the top 10. So, I mean, statistically, I think the Chiefs could get like the job done, but I think we got to think about this in a little bit of a landscape. I just think that Buffalo, they're on a mission. They want to get a job done. I just feel like they will want to come into Kansas City and show that they like can beat the Chiefs again. Now, of course, there's been this whole like thing that you beat a team once, you possibly you'll get beat by them like next time. Like we saw this in like the Oregon-Ohio State game. Like we saw this in the Oregon-Ohio State game. Like Oregon State, they beat Ohio, but then in the playoffs, Ohio beat Oregon. Is this another situation where maybe this like happens with the Chiefs and the Bills? Who knows? But I'm going to go with a little bit of a bold pick. I'm going to pick Buffalo to just beat the Kansas City Chiefs. I just think that they're on a mission. I think Josh Allen wants to prove that this team can actually get to the Super Bowl, and they're not just a team who can peak at the AFC Championship game. Like, it's really Super Bowl or bust, because if the Bills can't get it done, then you have to question whether if Sean McDermott is even like the right man for the job. And that's why I think he's going to coach the heck out of the Bills. And I think they're going to get out of Kansas City with another W, because that's been the season that it's been in the NFL. And eventually, like, what comes up must come down. And I think, is this the time that maybe where it comes down for Kansas City? Maybe, but we'll have to see.
Okay, so Stone is going with the bold pick, picking Buffalo for the upset in Kansas City, beating the back-to-back Super Bowl champions. Oh, man, you're putting me in a tough spot here, because I'm going to pick Kansas City. I mean, guys, they've won back-to-back Super Bowls. They make the Super Bowl practically every year. It's like, Steven, it's almost like the Patriots dynasty, where if they're competing in the playoffs, I'm just expecting them to make the Super Bowl. They just never fail to get it done. And like Stone said, Buffalo did beat them earlier in the year at Buffalo, but now you're going to Kansas City, and it's hard to beat the same team twice in the same season, like Oregon and Ohio State. I mean, Oregon had their number earlier in the year. Ohio State beat them here. I'm just gonna have to pick Kansas City just based on history and the year they're having. They've only lost one meaningful game until Carson Wentz stepped in for the last game, which they got destroyed. But I'm gonna pick Kansas City to win this game. I mean, until proven otherwise, that's my thing. Until proven otherwise, I have to pick Kansas City every time. I just have to. So I'm gonna pick Kansas City to tie up the score here, 1-1. Steven, Kansas City or Buffalo? Who are you picking?
I've been saying this all year, and I will continue to say it now. Buffalo has been throbbing at the mouth for this opportunity, and the team that they have built this year and have put on the field has shown that they are in it to win it. They are determined to get through that wall, and they are eager to get through the most difficult boss that comes with that wall, and that is being the Kansas City Chiefs. They had that big statement win early in the year. And the team that they put together and the team that's going in there, it's going to be ready to run through a brick wall. They have what it takes to do it again. They have what it takes. And you said it's tough to beat a team twice in a year, given the Kansas City Chiefs. Cincinnati did it. Cincinnati did it back from the 2021 season. They beat them in week 16, and then they beat them in the AFC Championship. They had that big comeback to go to overtime, and then they had the big interception to set up the game-winning field goal. It can be done. And that Kansas City team that Cincinnati beat was actually a pretty well put together team. It was a team that Mahomes was balling out. It wasn't like this year where Mahomes just wasn't living up to what he's expected to. He's going to get to that one game where they're not going to be able to live up to the motto that they've been to all season. We're relying on the defense, or the offense does just enough. It's not happening. I just can't see it happening. Like, Buffalo's ready to steamroll. It's going to be close, obviously. There's no way Kansas City's going out losing in a thrashing. But this is Buffalo's time. They are not going to be sad. They are not going to be okay if they lose to Kansas City for the fourth time in 5 years. Buffalo is going to win this game, and they are going to go to the Super Bowl in the AFC.
Okay. So if we got 2 votes for Buffalo, I'm the odd man out here voting for Kansas City. Stone laid it all out there for Buffalo as well. I mean, I'm just picking them based on the historical factor. They make the Super Bowl practically every freaking year. So that's why I'm picking them. But, I mean, I might have to do what Stone did with the Rams game. I mean, if it was my own bracket, I would, of course, have Kansas City making it to the Super Bowl. But for our case, I mean, you guys are right. I mean, Buffalo does seem different this year. They do seem more put together. And, yeah, four out of the last 5 years, Steven, is a little ridiculous. I mean, there has to be at least 1 year where they break through and dethrone the Chiefs. Is this the year where Josh Allen is playing super well? You guys think so? I don't know. But in this case, we'll have Buffalo moving on.
Yeah,
I think that seems like a fair compromise right there. I think Kansas City, they are definitely capable of 3-peating. Don't get me wrong, they can 3-peat, but I just think that everybody just wants to beat them, and I just think that even if they get let's just say random they get they play Denver in the championship game, they're gonna get the best Denver team that they could get. If maybe Pittsburgh were to make it to say a divisional round against Kansas City, they're going to get the best Pittsburgh team. The point that I'm trying to make is that Kansas City is so good that they're going to get the best team regardless of who they play. So they're going to have to play 3 challenging matchups while having all the pressure and spotlight to go and like three-peat, which has never happened in the history of like the Super Bowl. And that's why I just think that it's too much pressure, and eventually like the saying, like you can't put everything on the camel's back. Like eventually it's gonna break. And that's why I just think that Buffalo is the team that's gonna get the job done, because they have a great offense. They're just gonna overpower Kansas City's defense, and Kansas City doesn't have like the best offense to compete. So if it's in a shootout, the advantage goes to Buffalo. So, and that's how these type of games have really gone, is that they've been like a shootout. So I think that's the type of game Buffalo wants. They want a shootout, versus Kansas City wants like kind of a clean game, because they don't have the star power like they had like years ago, where you had Tyreek Hill and you had Travis Kelce, who was younger. Like they just don't have the same firepower like anymore.
They don't have an explosive attack, basically. They don't have that explosive attack that had gotten them where they wanted to be in years past.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, we got on the bracket. We got Buffalo Bills making it to the Super Bowl in New Orleans. But now we got to think about who they're competing with. Is it going to be Detroit? Is it going to be Philadelphia? We are going to see. But Stephen Gray, you're going to kick it off for us for the NFC representative. Who do we got? Philadelphia taking on Detroit at Ford Field.
As I mentioned earlier in the year, I mentioned this one time that Philadelphia could be the team that could potentially be a dark horse in coming to Detroit and potentially pull off an upset. They have the team to give them the best fight possible. Now, with that being said, I still stick with Detroit, what we've said for the whole year, Detroit being the best team in the league, and I still stick with that. And they are going to find a way to pull. They are going to find a way to pull this off. They just, with how, again, I keep going back to this, with how flashy that team is, I just don't see how they're going to lose. They are going to go out there and once again make that statement and prove them why they're the best. I'm picking Detroit to be the representative for the NFC in Super Bowl 59.
Okay. So Steven's got Detroit locked in for the Super Bowl for the NFC. I'm same boat as Steven. I mean, before you said that, I was literally going to pick the Eagles to win this game. But like now that I'm thinking about it and seeing what I've seen from the Eagles all year, is that when Jalen Hurts has pressure from the defensive front, he doesn't do well. They lost to the Buccaneers. They lost to the Falcons because there was consistent pressure coming off that D-line. If we know anything about Detroit, we know that the edge rushers and their defensive front is ruthless. They're going to get to the quarterback. They're going to put a lot of pressure on you. That's why Sam Darnold struggled last week, is because there was so much pressure coming at him. And like Stone mentioned, Jay Jettas is double covered. So there's nowhere for you to go with the ball if A.J. Brown is double covered and you're seeing pressure. I mean, your only hope is to throw it up to Saquon or Devontae Smith down there. But even if you do get that ball off, I mean, that secondary is hungry too. You got Terrion Arnold talking a lot of bullshit on Instagram. He's talking a lot of crap. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I just like the energy that I'm getting from Detroit. And to play against the Eagles, you do need to be aggressive. And that's what Dan Campbell is. That's the definition of Dan Campbell. If you go bought a dictionary, Dan Campbell, the word aggressive would be right next to his name, because he is.
He's literally the most unafraid coach ever.
Exactly.
Most aggressive ever.
That's what you need going against that Philadelphia team. I'm going to pick Detroit here.
He's got 2-0.
Here we go. Stone Mueller, who are you picking to advance?
I'm joining you all in saying that Detroit wins this game. It's a sweep. Detroit just has it like going for them. I just think that, let's just think about it. Like first, if they're hosting a championship game, then they might need to put a couple of screens outside of Ford Field. They may even have to put the game on like at like the Comerica Park, because they may have like a crazy watch party at this point.
Millions of people.
Yeah, like wild. It's going to be wild if they're like at home. And I just think that this is their moment. They're going to get it done. They have so many pieces on offense. I just think that both defenses are pretty good, but I think Detroit has the better offense, and that's what will lead them to the Super Bowl. Can't be easy, more simple than that.
There we go. So we got the Super Bowls set for New Orleans. We got the Detroit Lions taking on the Buffalo Bills. What a matchup. I mean, it's the 1 and the 2. Not exactly practical. It would be a 1 and a 1 for practical. But we against all odds, we were unbiased. We were logical. We looked at the stats. We came together even when we disagreed. But this is the matchup we had. This is what you guys have all been waiting for. The Detroit Lions taking on the Buffalo Bills. Here we go.
Who do the GP boys think is going to be the Super Bowl 59 champion?
Here we go. In Stephen Gray, you are going to kick us, or who's kicking us off?
I think Stone's first because I kicked off the NFC championship.
You're right. The bracket keeps getting smaller and smaller, and I just keep forgetting where we are. So
Stone's kicking us off.
Stone, you're going to kick off.
So I guess I'll start us off. So
you're going to start us off.
Let me just say that first, this game will be a shootout because both offenses are really like good. Like I just think at this point, like it's not going to be about whose defense is stopped. It's going to be a matter about whose offense just fails to like convert at this point. Like honestly, in this game, do we start seeing wild stuff from like the Lions? Like, do we see offensive linemen throwing like 10-yard passes to like the quarterback? Do we see some like crazy shenanigans that defies like, you know, the rule book of like football and the laws of football? Like who know? Like I just feel like that's the type of offense like Detroit will come out with. And then you got Josh Allen, who's just going to sling the football down the field to his buddies who are just running downfield, making the catch. Like I just think it would come down to whose offense doesn't really like convert, to be honest with you. And I mean, when you think about it, like both teams are hungry for a win. So this could be like the most like motivated Super Bowl that we've seen in recent memory. And I mean, it's so deep that you got to look at the special teams as well. Like Detroit has the better special teams, which means I think we'll give them a slight advantage, to be honest with you, in both like kickoffs and punt returns. And knowing that they have so much creativity on their offense and all that, I just think Detroit will edge out Buffalo and win their first Super Bowl in franchise history.
So Stone is going with the Detroit Lions not upset, they're in the 1 seed, to beat the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a close matchup, like you said. It's going to be a shootout. There's going to be multiple touchdowns scored, passing, rushing, pick sixes, fumble recovery, whatever the case is going to be. It's going to be a crazy freaking Super Bowl if these two teams face each other. If I'm looking at the best team to win it all and to overcome all these games and to make it to this, I mean, we've literally said it halfway through, and we've literally been rolling with it. Is that the Lions are the top dog right now? They're the top cat. You know, they're too good. They're our number one. They've been our number one. They're still our number one to this day, winning obviously the most competitive division in the NFC North, making it all the way to the playoffs, being the 1 seed, beating the Vikings, and letting everyone know we can hang with anyone. We got an aggressive coach. We got a great defense. We got a great quarterback who can fling the rock. I'm gonna pick Detroit. I'm not, bashing on Josh Allen or Buffalo Bills of what they've done this year. They've had a great year. Josh Allen has played arguably the best season of his career. But I just think that Detroit is the most complete team that can win it all. So I'm going to pick Detroit. That leaves you, Steven. Who do you think here?
All right. Fate of the world is in my hands.
There you go.
Right. These two teams I have given the most praise to all season. I have given Detroit their flowers all year. We all have. We have had them as number one all season. We have talked about everything that's needed to be talked about with them, and how good they are, how flashy they are, how ballsy they are, how unafraid they are. And then we got Buffalo, who have just looked completely different this year. And they just look like they're poised to make this big run. And these two teams in a rematch, we are definitely going to see a shootout. Man, it's like, honestly, if you're the defense, you might as well just stay home because you're probably not going to be needed. It's like you got Jared Goff versus Josh Allen for the World Championship. Two incredible quarterbacks. You have QB who was thrown into the dust in the Matthew Stafford trade and said, "You're done," and he has rejuvenated his career with the team that has been built by Dan Campbell. And then you've got a QB who is most likely going to be the MVP, who's been leading the charge. And like, we're going to be seeing a repeat. We would be seeing a repeat. This matchup happens, we'd be seeing a repeat from December. End of the day, only one can win. And honestly, you better start greasing up those polls in Detroit, because I am picking the Detroit Lions to win Super Bowl 59. We have said all season that Detroit has been the best team in the league, and we must stick with that. And they are going to complete a historic season and win their first Super Bowl franchise history. Walk off in the sunset. Everybody's happy with the Cinderella story.
That's it. Detroit Lions, the GP boys have, we did this whole thing for you guys. We spent 2 hours making this to the best of our abilities, to our, football-minded perspective, expertise. We really do think that the Detroit Lions are going to be winning the Super Bowl this upcoming year, or the playoffs. That's what we're going with. Stone just took a picture of it. Steven, on social media, are you going to be updating everyone on what picks are right with checks and X's?
I can do that.
You can do that. Okay.
I can keep the socials posted.
Okay, perfect. We can keep this. Guys, honestly, at the end of the day, I'm hoping there's no X's. I'm hoping it's just check all the way through the Super Bowl.
That would be ideal, very ideal.
But you know how the NFL is. It's so unpredictable. You never know what's gonna happen. Yeah. So we're gonna see.
We're gonna stay tuned. And hey, week by week, we will go through the games. We will point out what we've gotten right, what we need to, if we need to make predictions based on different results and everything. We'll keep you all updated with the playoffs as they go on.
We will.
For sure.
We're going to be talking to you guys next Tuesday. Same time.
Yep, we'll be here. We'll be talking about the postseason. We'll talk about all the wild card matchups. Hopefully we have some good stories for you all. And we'll see you all, I guess, right here, same time next week. I guess have yourself a great weekend of playoff football, because the postseason is starting, and it's now win or go home. It's not best of 3, best of 5, best of 7. It's one game to determine whether you move on or if you have to wait until September to begin your season again.
Well said. But everyone have a great weekend. It has been our pleasure to do this for you guys. But we'll keep you guys updated. But have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys next week.
For sure. See ya.